All right, in this video we're going to talk about elasticity, and specifically we're going to look at the calculating elasticity. So we've already, in the notes, we've already talked a little bit about what elasticity is, and we're going to look at the demand elasticity. So let's get into the calculation. And we're going to add a little bit of stuff that's not in the textbook just to get a little deeper understanding. Okay, so we're talking about calculating, and for now we can think of there as being two methods. Okay, so I'm going to show you one method, and then I'll show you the one they use in the textbook and kind of explain why there's these two different methods. So the first one is our point method. So our elasticity of demand is otherwise known as the price elasticity of demand, or just elasticity of demand, is basically how much does the quantity change when the price changes. Okay, that's how we can think of it. So this is the percentage change in the quantity demand in price. And as you remember, before we talked about why do we use percent. Well, it's because you might have totally different prices and quantities. And so just an absolute change of like the quantity changed by 5 or the price changed by $1 is not very meaningful unless you know compared to what. So for example, for a luxury car, the price changing by $1 is essentially zero change. For a candy bar, price change by $1 might be doubling of the price. Okay, so and same thing with quantities, depending if the market is big or small. So the point method is to calculate the percent the way that you are used to. So percentage change, well, you say, well, how much did it change? So it started at some quantity and went to some other quantity, and then you divide by the beginning part, right? And then the same thing with price. You say, well, how much did the price change? So what was it before and how much is it after? And then divide by where you started. Now, onto this, you could put, if you want to, you could put times 100%. Okay, you can put that. You don't really need that because since it's in the top and the bottom, it will divide out. So you don't really need that. So I'm not going to use that when we do the calculations, just to make things simpler and faster. Okay, so we then can do a calculation. So let me do an example. And so I'll use this example to illustrate what's going on here. And then I will also show why the book suggests, and I kind of suggest that you actually use a different method to do this calculation. But the way we're doing it here is the way that people think of percentage change. This is the way you were probably taught to do percentage change in your math class that you've taken before. So that's why I want to start with this. Okay, so let's suppose this point is point A, and this is 6 and 6. Okay, it doesn't really look like 6 and 6, but it is. Okay, and this point B is 4 and 10. Okay, so when the price is 6, they buy 6, and when the price is 4, they want to buy 10. Okay, so we're going to do this elasticity. So first we're going to think, well, what if we go from A to B? So initially we are at point A, and then they lower the price by $2, and we end up at point B. Okay, so let's do that calculation first. So our elasticity demand is going to be, so the starting price is, this is P1, right? And this is P2. So then this one is Q1. Okay, so we start at 6, sorry, we're going to do quantity first. We start at $6 and we go to 10, so it's 10, take away 6, so it changes by 4. And then it's relative to the starting point, so we divide by where we started, which is 6. And then for the price started at $6 and went to 4. So 4 was after, 6 was before, so it went down by 2. And we start at 6, so we divide by 6 here. Okay, and then we do the math. In case you don't remember this, having the fraction in the middle, we can just do the top and the bottom separately, and then we can put them together at the end. Okay, so on the top we got 4 out of 6, and on the bottom we have negative 2 out of 6. And then if you, just to remind you how to solve this, right, you get 4 out of 6. You could reduce these, but I'm not going to until the end. And then dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. Okay, so we can put it like this, and then these two cancel, and then so it ends up being 4 times negative 1/2. And so then we end up with 4 divided by the 2 gives 2, so we end up with negative 2. Okay, so you get negative 2 here, right? The negative, what's the point of the negative is telling us about, okay, law of, that's what the negative is telling us about. Okay, so the negative is telling us about law of demand. We'll come back in just a second and evaluate these. Okay, so then, well, what if we, instead of going from A to B, we want to go from, we started at B at $4, and now they raised the price by $2. So instead of starting at $6 and lowering the price by 2, and now they've started at $4 and they raised the price by 2. What's going to happen? Okay, so we're going from B to A. So in the calculation, well, so again, on the top, I mean on the bottom, now this is reversed. Okay, so we start at 10 and we go to 6, and we start at $4 and we go to $6. Okay, so everything is going to be reversed. So, well, we start at 10 and then we go, the quantity goes down by 4, and we start at 10, so we divide by 10 on the bottom. And then down here, we started at 4, and then the price was raised by 2, okay? And since it started at 4, that goes here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our calculation. So on the top, we get negative 4 out of 10. And on the bottom, we end up with 2 out of 4. Okay, so we continue our calculation. 4 out of 10. Okay, find our reciprocal. And so we end up getting negative 16 out of 20. And we can reduce that, dividing both top and bottom by 4. So divide 4 into the top and bottom, and so we're going to get negative 4 out of 5. Okay, so again, our answer is negative, and that is law of demand. And this is also law of demand. But there's something, negative, so we always expect these to be negative. Now, there's two things we can do with this answer. So one is we can evaluate it. So one way to evaluate it here is to take the absolute value. So when you take the absolute value, you get rid of the negative sign. So that equals 2. So going from A to B, it appears to be elastic. Right? Remember, greater than 1 is elastic. But down here, so we take the absolute value of negative 405. So this is 405. And this is inelastic. And so we end up doing this. Now, this gives us something not very satisfying. So now we know how to calculate it, and it's very intuitive to calculate it this way because it's the way we would normally think of calculating it. But there's a little bit of a problem. And the problem is that when we lower the prices or we raise the prices between two exact points, the same prices and quantities, the answers won't be the same. And this is not very satisfying. And the reason the answers won't be the same is because when we're at low prices, then we'll be dividing by small numbers on the bottom, and the quantity will be bigger, so we'll be dividing by a bigger number on the top, and so it's going to make the bottom big and the top small, so it's going to lower this number, right? And then the same thing when we go from a high number from a high price to a low price, like we did from A to B. Now this is a bigger number, but the top is a smaller number, and this will change the situation. So the top part is the same. The change is still a quantity changed by 4 and our price changed by 2, but the calculation for elasticity will end up different. Okay, and so many people find this not very satisfying. So in order to fix this issue, we're going to do something called the midpoint method. So let me come back in the next video and we do the midpoint method.